Hello, it's Caireen Sutherland here. I presented at the Usher Kids webinar the other evening around multisensory impairment and vision impairment access in education settings. I'm a qualified teacher of vision impairment, currently working for the RNIB as Principal Education Officer, and I also hold the Qualified Teacher of Multisensory Impairment qualification. I'm here just to give you a few highlights and top tips with regards to things to look out for in education settings with your children. The first thing to say is, in an ideal world, you would have access to a teacher of the deaf, a qualified teacher of vision impairment, and a qualified teacher of multisensory impairment. However, the latter, an MSI teacher, are very rare and there are not teachers in every authority. The second best option is that you have a teacher of the deaf and a QTVI who work together closely and are aware that the impact of hearing and vision loss is much more than just the sum of those two sensory impairments. Some key things to look out for in the provision for your child in an education setting. With regards to positioning, you will have thought much about this in terms of deaf awareness and access, but also it's important to consider lighting. There is little sometimes that we can do about lighting in classrooms, as many classrooms have strip lighting. However, I would stress that it's important to consider lighting and the source of the light, whether it's coming from behind and the side, and whether there's an option for your child to have task lighting, which is focused and for their own individual needs. That's if this is applicable. In terms of resources, it's really important that any printed materials or electronic resources, your child has their own copy and it is in an appropriate font size. That font size should be determined through functional assessments with your qualified teacher of vision impairment. These need to be done functionally, and the QTVI will do them in association with clinical assessments. So it's really important that any resources are produced at the correct size, good clarity, contrast, and they have their own copy. Now, having their own copy in the appropriate font size is half the battle, but how are they recording their work? Are they recording their work in their own handwriting? If so, are they able to easily scan and read back their own handwriting for reference and learning and future revision? If not, then perhaps an alternative method of recording their work should be considered. Perhaps they need to record their work electronically and set up systems of filing on a computer for ease of access. Not only do we need to think about near resources in terms of printed work, but also access to the teacher and the whiteboards. The traditional whiteboards with markers and the interactive whiteboards. It's really important that your child has access to both the teacher and the whiteboards, and there are methods of doing this via technology and screen sharing that your QTVI should be able to advise on. In terms of mobility, not only is the mobility getting to and from school and around the environment important, but also look at the access within specialist settings and specialist classrooms. Is everything fully accessible, and are they able to navigate those spaces as well as those larger spaces? And finally, to finish, technology. I think the use of technology can enhance independence and access to the environment considerably, but it requires a joined up approach from professionals and looking ahead to the future, working together with you and your child to think about what future needs there might be and how the technology input now in the early years and early on in school needs to be right. So touch typing, for example, may be part of access, but there may be other skills that we need to develop in your child in order to make the technology route as accessible as possible. I hope the summary of top points is helpful and guides you when you're liaising with your QTVIs and teachers of the deaf, or your QTMSI to ensure your child is getting the best possible provision. Thanks so much for listening.